Hi everybody, it's a West Coast Paper Crafter and you are tuning in for project number 3 of my More Than Autumn card class at home. This is our third and final project, and this card is a fun fold that has a built-in gift card holder. So I have all the measurements ready to go. I'm going to walk you through them, and we will get started with our last project in this card series. We do need our paper trimmer for these cards, so if you don't have yours ready and you're crafting along, then you're just going to want to grab it. So the first thing is our card base. This is Petal Pink. It is 4 1/4 by 11, and we're going to score this twice. I've got a strip of Petal Pink that's 5 by 1 3/8, and that is going to be scored as well. This is basic white for the inside of the card, 5 1/4 by 4. And I've got some designer series paper from the Snowy Scenes pack. This one is 3 inches by 4 inches. This one is 2 inches by 4 inches. And the last is 1 1/4 inches by 3 7/8 inches. I'll put those aside. And I've also gone ahead and cut out some die cuts using the Nested Essential dies. This is Poppy Parade. If you don't have the dies, then you just go ahead and cut some cardstock to 2 3/8 by 3. Now I think in project number 2, I do believe I mentioned these were a different size, so I apologize, that is incorrect. The correct measurements are in the description of the video though. So this one, if you don't have the die, 2 3/8 by 3, and you'll need 2 of those. And this white die is 1 7/8 by 2 5/8. All right, so let's get started. I'm just going to get some pieces out of the way so I don't lose them, and grab my paper trimmer. And the first thing we'll do is score the Petal Pink. This is 4 1/4 by 11. We're going to score it at 5 1/2 on the 11-inch side. And then I'm going to extend the arm on my paper trimmer, and I'm going to score it at 8 3/4. All right, so I'm going to fold this in half at the 5 1/2 inch score line, and then at the 8 3/4 inch score line, I'm going to fold it in again, but folding it into the inside of the card. All right, now before I put away my paper trimmer, I'm going to take this little piece of Petal Pink. This is 5 1 3/8, and on the 5-inch side, I am going to score it at 1 inch. And just give it a little fold. So it looks like that. All right, that's all we need the paper trimmer for. Let me move that out of the way. So what we're going to do is glue down the inside fold, and that is going to be our gift card holder. So you can use Tombow if you like, but I prefer tear and tape. So if you do use Tombow, just use a very thin line from your score line to the edge of the cardstock, because you just want to make sure that you have enough room to tuck in a little gift card or whatever you're going to tuck in there. All right, that's all I need the tear and tape for, so I'm just going to push that down so I know it's adhered well. And I'm going to pull the backing off with my handy take your pick tool. Very handy if you have short nails like I do. Okay, so I've got the backing off. I'm just folding this over, and I'm going to push down on the edges where I've got the tear and tape. And I've just made my little gift card holder. All right, so now for the front of the card, I'm going to glue down my designer series paper that is 3 inches by 4 inches, and that's going to fit right on your card front. Okay, just like so. Then I'm going to flip my card over and I'm going to glue down the designer series paper to the front of that little gift card holder that we just made. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to create our little folding mechanism by gluing down this Petal Pink strip just where we've scored it and to the edge of the cardstock, so just on that little flap. So I'm going to add some glue just to the back of that little flap we made, and then I'm going to glue that down to the right edge of the inside of the card. I just want to make sure it's even and flush against the edge of our card. All right, so now I'm going to glue down our basic white, and that's going to cover up that little piece that we just glued down, so your card will look a little more polished. And before I glue it down, I just want to add some donuts to the corner of my basic white cardstock. All right, I'm going to close up this ink pad for the moment so I don't get ink everywhere. All right, so before I glue this down, I'm just going to color in my donuts, and I've got my light pecan pie with the bullet tip, and I'm just going to cover in the donut edges that's not frosting. So there's not a lot to color, which is why I'm using my bullet tip. Okay, I get the inside, I don't want to forget that. And then I'm going to color in the frosting. So I have got a dark Flirty Flamingo. Now I've got more space to color, so I'm going to use my brush tip, and I'm just going to color in that frosting with Flirty Flamingo. And I'll try to be careful not to let that color bleed outside of the lines, because I like to keep everything neat and tidy, but sometimes if your cardstock gets a little bit too wet with your blending brush, the colors will bleed. So if you're adding layers, then it's a good idea to just let the layers dry in between applying a second layer. And it doesn't have to be long. I just sometimes, if I'm going to add a second layer of color, I'll just set it aside for maybe 30 seconds and let that cardstock dry up a bit before I add a second layer. Otherwise, the colors tend to bleed over your lines. Okay, so that's done. Just going to grab my glue, and we're going to glue this piece right to the inside of the card. Okay, so we got the inside done. And now what I want to do is add this last piece of designer series paper to that folding mechanism that we made just before we glued down that inside piece. So this little piece of paper will fit that little strip perfectly. All right, now that we have that down, we can go ahead and finish stamping. We're going to want to stamp a sentiment. So in my sample card, I used Calypso Coral for the sentiment. And in this one, I'm just going to use my basic black again. But you can choose whatever color you like for your sentiment. So I'm just going to stamp this up in the top half of my little white die cut, like that. And then I'm going to glue this down to my Poppy Parade. Okay, so once that sticks, then I'm ready to put this right onto the front flap. And I am going to add glue to the flap instead of adding glue to the back of here. And that way I know I'm not going to have any glue leach over. So I've just kind of eyeballed it. I know that this little line in my DSP, I probably don't want glue much farther than that line, so I'm going to keep all the glue over. And then I'm just going to flip that over to make sure I've lined this up exactly how I want it. All right, once you have it where you like it, just apply a little bit of pressure if you're using liquid glue, and you'll be able to get that to stick and it'll hold down. So now what I want to do, and this is completely optional, but I'm going to cover up this pink strip with my second essential, nested essential die cut. So I'm just going to, and totally optional, it's up to you. I like to do this because in my opinion, it gives my card a more finished, more polished look. But it's completely up to you if you want to add this step. So I've just lined up these two die cuts so they're even. All right, now I've got a scrap piece of white, and I want about 3 or 4 donuts. And then once I've done stamping those donuts, I don't know if that's going to fit, just fits. I'll color them in with the same stamping blends that I use for the inside of the card. So I've got, well, this is light Calypso Coral, and this is dark Flirty Flamingo, and then I've got a light Pecan Pie for the actual donut. So color those in, and then you're going to want to either die cut them if you have the die cuts for this bundle, or just fussy cut them. So for the sake of time, I've gone ahead and pre-colored and cut 4 donuts. So if you are crafting along, you might just want to pause the video, color in your donuts and die cut them out, and then join me when you're ready. So I've got my 4 donuts here, and what I want to do is start out by choosing which color a donut I want to be on the top. And I think I'm going to do the light Calypso Coral because I like that lighter color for the contrast. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. No, I'm going to change my mind. And I'm changing my mind because I've got a dark Flirty Flamingo in this corner, and I just want to alternate my colors. So I'm going to do that. So I have an idea where they're going to go. Now I am going to glue down 2 of these donuts, and I'm just going to add some glue to the top half because they are going to have a little bit of overhang over my sentiment layer. And I don't want any glue to leach out over that. Okay, so I've got my 2 Calypso coral colored donuts that are going to be glued down to the sentiment piece. And then I'm going to pop up the last 2 donuts like so. So let me grab my dimensionals. And I'm going to pop a dimensional right in between these 2 donuts. And then I'm going to add this one, and just a little smidge lower than those first 2, just to add it, just to make things a little bit different. Okay, and then this donut I might bring up just kind of around the corner. All right, same thing. I'm going to add 1 dimensional to the edge. Oh, you know what? I actually think I'm going to move that just a tiny bit. If I can gently take that off. Looks like I salvaged it, which is nice. I'm just going to move that over just a little bit. All right, that looks better. Okay, so now we've got our donuts attached to the sentiment piece of the card. And there's just a couple more things we need to do to finish this card. I've got some Flirty Flamingo twine, and I'm going to wrap this around the flap of the card 3 times. And I want to have quite a bit of extra twine so I can easily tie a bow. And I'm just going to maneuver this twine so it's right at the edge, or almost right at the left edge of the card, right where it folds. I like to tie my bows either to the top right of the card or in the bottom left. I don't typically tend to put bows right in the middle, but you do whatever you like, wherever you prefer to tie your bow. All right, oops. I thought I had it, not quite. If you have a pair of reverse tweezers, they're very handy to help you hold your twine in place while you are working on your bow. So I'm just going to put some pressure on the knot while I manipulate the ends of my bow. And also when I'm going to shorten the loops just a little bit. So I find it gives me a little bit more control if I put pressure on the knot while I'm pulling one of the tail ends, just to adjust where I want my bow to sit and how big I want my loops. And you can also do that, just put a little pressure on that knot if you want to change direction where your tails are, and you can usually manipulate them into laying it how you'd like it. So it's just a little bit easier if you hang on to that knot so that it doesn't come apart. All right, once you have your bow how you like it, then I like to just give it an extra little tighten so it's not going to fall apart, and trim off any extra string. Okay, so we got our bow, we've got our fun fold, and the last thing I want to do is add some of the rainbow adhesive back dots. And I'm going to add these, I think these are Petal Pink, fairly certain they're Petal Pink. They're very light. So I'm just going to add some of these adhesive dots to the front of my card. One more. I'm going to put that right above my Flirty Flamingo donut. All right, that is project 3, our fun fold with a gift card holder built in. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and all 3 projects that we made. Thanks very much for tuning in, and I will see you sometime at the end of October with my next free online card class. Thanks again for tuning in, and I hope you have a great day.